Hey guys, it is Last Brohican and I'm coming at you with another video. Kind of feeling like a little bit of a one-trick pony right now, but it is going to be a Byzantium strategy for version 1.36. So hopefully this helps you out a little bit. Now, before we start talking the actual strategy, I'm going to put up a quick disclaimer here. As of the date of this recording, there is no RNG-proof strategy to playing Byzantium on version 1.36, which is probably by design from Paradox. Anyone saying that they have is probably lying. Yes, you will need most, if not all, the DLCs to do this. Yes, it will be trial and error. No, you cannot or should not play this on speed 5. The walkthrough I'm about to show you is almost just, you can view as a general idea of how this can go. Your strategy might look different, and that's okay. It could still work out. I'm going to try to make this as condensed of a video as possible, but there are a lot of steps to doing this, so please bear with me. First, we're going to just take a quick look at what we're up against right now, because in the new patch, we do have some pretty major debuffs that are taken in the form of estates. There are two ones to be very mindful of, and the first one we'll talk about is deteriorating army. As we can see here, our debuffs are pretty substantial. Very low morale, pretty much no ability to assault forts. This pretty much throws out the original old school strategy that I showed in my other video out the window, but it's important to know that we are at a much weaker standpoint military-wise. The next debuff is reliance on republics. This one is big because it increases our shipbuilding time by 200%. So it will take thousands of days to build ships, build galleys, build carracks. So we're going to have to get pretty creative around how we actually build up our navy and to ensure we control the strait. The tax exemption and the union of churches aren't great either, but they are definitely the lesser of the other four evils, the other two evils, so to speak. So they're not incredibly important to this segment of the playthrough, but later on, farther down the road for your Byzantium strategy and playthrough, you're going to want to address these. Now let's talk about the estates that we do want to add. Of course, we want to add our admin and our military admin power +1. This is pretty standard. We will not do it for Diplo because we're going to sell our titles. But then for religious states, we will then go for the religious diplomats to get that opinion boost and also the Diplo rep. After that, we will then grab expansion and zealotry, and that's all we're probably going to grab for them. You can also, of course, empower them as well, but then for military, we're going to go supremacy. Then we're going to go for the eugenist officer rights. That's important. And then for our traders, patrons of the arts. Then I personally like private trade fleets, and then we will grab, and this is where we get fancy, we will go for the Emporioi Force Draft and the Emporioi Naval School of Rights. Then of course we summon the Diet, and you choose which one. Normally, if you have the ability to get 2 alliances as one of the goals, go for that one. Here we are going to choose to grab land from the Ottomans, since that will be our ultimate goal in the next 10 years. We then, of course, sell our titles, seize back the lands, then we move to our rivals, where ideally if we can get Epirus, that's great, but here we don't, so we'll go with Tunis, Karaman, and Genoa, or Genoa, however you want to pronounce it. Then I personally like to remove cavalry. I think they're very expensive for the beginning of the game here, so I usually drop my cavalry. I move them over into Greece, then make sure that I get my ships all bundled together, and then after that I will draft our ships for war, which that's important because that will then build us a carrack in half the time, so about 1,000 days. And then we of course draft our admiral and our army officer, our army general. Fortunately, our general isn't that great, but that's fine. After we start having our troops moving, wherever they planted the carrack, because it's kind of random, we will then fill in all other spaces with galleys. So here you'll see I'm just going to start adding galleys to every province that I can. After that, we're going to build up our infantry using Athens. So we'll grab all the halberd infantry that we can get. And we're just going to make sure, look at the force limit, make sure we're all good there. I'm going to build it up as far as I can just so we can trigger our first mission. But you can also rely on mercenaries. Next, what we're going to do is grab some quick alliances here, or at least start them. Hoping to see that we can get a Diplo rep or a improve relations guy. Unfortunately, we cannot. So what we're going to do for Serbia here is insult one of their rivals, which for us will be Wallachia. They're not very important for us. They can be, but we're going to just sidestep them. And then, of course, the big pivotal moment here on day 0 is starting to get and become friends with the papacy. Quickest way to do this is to scornfully insult one of their rivals. So we're going to choose Florence here. And that is all of our moves for day 0. So the next thing we're going to want to do is try to secure an alliance with the Papal States. But we also want to do this as quickly as possible. They tend to build up a bunch of diplomatic relationships. And after that, if we are not one of them, it can become very hard to become their allies. And we do need them for the war. So what we're going to do is scornfully insult one of their rivals, which is Florence. And then we're going to play the waiting game. We're looking to do 2 things here. We are looking to declare war on Epirus before they get any alliances. And we're looking to get an alliance with the papacy all around that same time. So as we can see here, I'm kind of juggling things between December 11th being the first day you can declare war on somebody, and then December 12th being when we can interact with the papacy again. And so fortunately, very fortunately, I'm able to do that and then complete our first mission. And then that same day, I'm also able to start a war with Epirus, which we are going to need for not only their vassalage, but their ships for the upcoming war. The war is pretty straightforward here. Obviously, we just siege down their capital and then make sure that we are also going to try and lose as few ships as possible here, just because, as mentioned, it takes so long to build any. Yes, of course, we have the potential of capturing ships, but the gamble is not necessarily worth the risk, or the reward is not necessarily worth the risk. So we will avoid that for right now. After we get that, we are going to start looking at doing some of the other missions here. We are going to, when we get the Union of Churches, we are going to stand by our decision and stay with it. Obviously, we do not want to upset the papacy, and we want to make sure we keep that alliance going. So we're going to stick with the Union, and then while we're waiting to siege down the Epirus capital, we are looking to continually shop for as many alliances as we can get. We see that we can just barely squeeze in an alliance with Hungary here. This is one of the things where I mentioned that you may not be able to follow what I'm doing here to a T. You're not always able to get an alliance with Hungary. I am just lucky with this. So, of course, using the similar tactic as I do with the papacy, I scornfully insult one of their rivals, which just happens to be the Ottomans. That's a no-brainer. So I'm going to do that to secure an alliance with them. And then after we finish up our war with the Epirosians, we take Arta to once again get the false despots mission, but then they are our vassal, so they won't help us really too much, but their ships will, which is what we really need from them. After we have vassalized Epirus, really the next phase of this is just going to be relationship building and getting some of those immediate missions done. So we already have impending doom and false despots. Next, we want to go for reinforced Constantinople and then the Hexamilian Wall. But really, what we're looking for here is just creating as many alliances as we can. So we can see I am looking to strengthen my relationship with Serbia because we need that for reinforced Constantinople to get 250 ducats. But then we're also trying to get an alliance with the Knights, Georgia, and then obviously Hungary as well. And that's really what this phase is all about, is just continually creating as many relationships as possible. Even if we go over our relationship number, that's fine, or the number of relationships we can have. We only need them for this first war. If we start breaking alliances afterwards, that's okay. All we need to do is get ourselves ready with as many alliances as possible. The other thing that's worth considering here is to release Bulgaria with Massambria. This is the new county we get with the new patch. So this is good for a couple of reasons. A, helps a little bit with your force limit modifier. Also, B, it's another castle that they have to siege down, the Ottomans do. So just, it's not a bad idea. I wouldn't do it right at the beginning of the game. It's better closer to the end here, just because, you know, when it raises your force limit modifier, it can be a little tough with money. So I usually wait till right before I'm kind of getting everything ready to fight the Ottomans themselves. Alright, now if you haven't already noticed, I've kind of sped up some of my gameplay just to kind of keep up with the content and to shorten the video for you all. I know this is getting long. Anyways, so this phase is largely just doing two things. A, grabbing as many alliances as you can, the bigger the better. So I have Hungary. As soon as Naples becomes its own nation, I grab them as allies too. I then also have the papacy, the Knights, Serbia, and at that point, yes, and then also some of the Orthodox countries in the Caucasus. Now, I am definitely taking a Diplo hit on this because I'm going way over my diplomatic relations, but that's fine. We're probably going to break a lot of these after our first war with the Ottomans, but we need them for right now. Next, after that, what I'm really doing is simply just waiting to see what the Ottomans do. We're really waiting for them to declare war on some of their smaller neighbors in the Anatolia region, and then we are waiting to make our strike. One could maybe think that with all your alliances, you just wait for a defensive war. It so far has not worked for me. It's something about the Ottomans kind of concentrating all their forces and then just being unleashed on you with the limited ground you have to maneuver in can be pretty dangerous. So we are waiting for that moment where they attack one of the smaller neighbors, whether that's Karaman, Dukaldir, or Hysinkaifa. These are the countries we're waiting for them to kind of really push their armies all the way to the east, so then we can start making moves in the west. The other thing too is, of course, we are focusing on doing some of those preliminary missions. So after we get our money from the Serbians, we're really then just completing more of the missions, upgrading our defenses. That's all very important for the upcoming war that's about to happen. And so this will take maybe a couple of years of just getting everything ready, consolidating your navy, of course. As soon as all your galleys in the Carrack are developed, then you want to start developing more galleys. They may not help you in the actual war, they may not be built in time, but you still want them just in case. I'm going to slow it down right now just because we're about to get ready for us to declare war against the Ottomans. So when we feel like things are close, when they're starting to focus more in Anatolia than Eastern Europe, or the Balkans more specifically, we are going to recruit at least three mercenary groups. That's the big thing. 3 mercenary groups to get the last mission tree that we need. Alrighty, and now begins the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time for us to actually attack the Ottomans. I don't recommend waiting for them to attack you. There seems to be some sort of thing where they just kind of can concentrate their forces and just massacre you and your armies, and it just never works out. So I always recommend that you attack them when they are focusing someone in Anatolia. So here we see that they have started the war with Dukaldir, and they're pretty well invested in it already. So we are going to start our attack. What we do is we lie and make every false promise we can to any of our allies to get them to join this war. So this gets us the Hungarians, the Knights, the Serbs. We just want to pack as many men onto this field as possible. We even get the Georgians in here. This is all what we want to fight this war. So for this war, I chose my war goal as Tirhala, just because it would be an easy place for us to capture and help us tick up the war score. But then I send as many of our troops to Salonik. Now, the problems already arise, and this is where it's not going to be as perfect as what it used to be able to, where if your army faces the Ottomans one-on-one, they will beat you. The morale debuff you have is just too great, and as you can see here, they get the best of me in one of the first battles. However, we have numbers on our sides here, so we are going to persevere. We are going to just continue on and have the rest of our mercenaries siege down Salonik, regroup, and then move on to Gallipoli. With the number of ships we have, you should be able to barrage forts, And so we are going to do the same here with Gallipoli as we did with Saloniki and try to siege down these forts as fast as possible. Once we start doing that, you'll kind of see this strategy take shape as to what we've known in the past, which is that we are going to siege down Gallipoli, hold the strait, and then just slowly choke the Ottomans from the Eastern European side. This is what we've done in the past. This is what we normally do. It just takes a lot more steps this time and a lot more allies. You can't really do this without allies anymore. That's the big... You have to do this with allies. You can't do it by yourself anymore. The next thing you have to consider, of course, is just your finances. You can go bankrupt. So what I start doing here is after I have the strait secured, I start decommissioning a few of the mercenary groups and then just let my allies do the rest of the work. Let them carry it on in terms of sieging. So then that way I can slow the bleeding enough that when it's finally time to call a truce, I'll just be able to use the money that we get from it to immediately patch up any of our loans that we took out. But eventually the loans do become too much and we kind of just get all that we can get. I'm a little bit worried about our allies petering out. So at around 60% war score, we do just take what we can get. We focus on getting money first, of course, to pay back all of our loans, but then also to connect Constantinople to Greece and then get us some land into Serbia and Albania, because that is likely where our next conquest is. But, we'll see. And yeah, that's kind of the whole strategy here, guys. So to really sum it all up, build ships, get as many allies as you can, and then just wait for the Ottomans to strike at Anatolia. And then just have as many allies as you can, just rush them, and then push them out of Greece and Eastern Europe. And so that's kind of how it goes. A little bit similar to what the old patches had, but at least this one, there is some new nuances to it, especially with the debuffs. There is a lot more prep to it. So definitely focus on that. Definitely make sure that you're finishing off as many missions as possible ahead of your first fight with the Ottomans. But then after that, it's a fun playthrough. I have to admit, there's a lot of fun things to do with the new Byzantium updates. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed us. This is Last Mohican, and happy gaming.